What is going on, everybody? I am here with the Esports Historian, Thooorin. Thooorin, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Enjoying the day. We're reaching the end of day 2 here at the Gfinity Spring Masters. And how's your day been so far? How did you find yesterday?
Yesterday was a bit long. Didn't really get to see that much Counter-Strike overall, so I'm glad we got the games underway today. There've already been like potential upsets, people winning maps who weren't expected to, so I think it's actually kind of added to the event, because when I saw some of the names like Titan had to drop out last minute, Virtus Pro was coming with a stand-in, and I worried like, oh, well, these are some of the big names, like you want the marquee names to turn up, so I'm glad that we still had good Counter-Strike played today, and I think whenever you have good matches, it'll make up for any organizational problems you had earlier.
Yeah. Funnily enough, Mishu has been playing absolutely fantastically, don't you think?
He's been playing well, certainly. I mean, the upside of bringing him is that normally if you bring a stand-in, you think, okay, we'll throw everything out the window. He can't do anything that the guy did before we had. But he has actually played with them before. He played with them at the Game Show League in, I think it's in Moscow at the time. So he has a little bit of history with them. So hopefully there was something they could fall back on. And by the win they just had over Cloud9, I would assume that they have some sort of chemistry with him.
Yeah. All right. So, like I said when I introduced you, you are kind of known as the Esports Historian. What's that about? Kind of maybe give us a little explanation of that title and your history.
Yeah. Well, actually, people think I made that nickname up. Like, I am a very vain person, but I didn't make that nickname up. Someone else came up with it. It was a good nickname. So when I did Face It, for everyone, they would design like banner art if you went and did casting there. And for everyone, they'd have a different name, you know. Like if it was like some famous Russian Quake player, they'd be like the Maestro or something. And so they actually just came up with it. They just put the Esports Historian. And I always used to just say like journalist or something, you know. But I thought that's a pretty cool title actually, because my main focus has always been like the history of the game. Like who are the great players? Like where do the people now like stack up? Like always Get Right Now as good as like, you know, Forrest was or even a more old school name, Potty, some of these really old school CS players. I like to like figure that sort of stuff out. So that's my main focus. And now, luckily, I'm not down with the plebs like you, having to do like simple interviews. I can actually focus entirely on that, you know. So.
Very typical Thooorin comment there. Luckily, I can take a bit of humour. Some people usually you're quite a controversial figure in the community. You get a lot of people who love you, a lot of people that have more of a negative reaction. I think you're great. I think you offer a good opinion, good insight. Why do you think it is that you have these two different sides to the reactions that you get from the communities that you're involved in?
I mean, if you wanted to go on like a like psychological, deep philosophical level, actually, just in general, that's how I am as a person. You know, if I actually get to know someone, the odds are they'll either like be really in tune with what I'm about, like really liking it, or they'll just like hate me completely. So I think that's just that on a bigger scale. Yeah. And I could just go like a joking route and go, well, it's probably because I'm right a lot of the time and the world's wrong. You know, yeah. So when the world like sort of, maybe when I'm dead, I'll sort of be like. Sort of like Leonardo da Vinci, you know? Maybe I'll be thought of as a genius, but only later, so...
Thorin against the world, kind of?
Not against the world, no, but the world's just coming round slowly, you know?
To the ways of Thorin, nice. All right, so, you know, Esports Historian, talking about history, when did you start in esports? What did you start as? Kind of like, maybe give us your background on that sort of side of things.
Well, I actually started before it was even called esports, before there was such a thing as like a field of it. I used to just
What was it called?
It wasn't called anything. It used to be Quake, basically. Yeah. Quake was the first game. I used to play that. Used to watch it a little bit. It was hard to watch tournaments there because they weren't really like big and televised, but you could watch demos of them, you know. And then esports stuff, I actually only started in like 2001, so that was like really early days of CS. Quake was still around. There was no StarCraft 2. That was years and years away. So it was mainly just Counter-Strike and Quake at the time.
Okay. All right, so your original esport was Quake, and you've kind of seen FPS develop over such a long period of time. You know, how different are things now to then, not obviously in terms of scale, because obviously things are a lot bigger, which we can get onto in a second, but, you know, the difference in titles that have changed in popularity over time, because obviously now CSGO is very popular, something like Quake's a bit smaller.
Well, I mean, this is an opinion that certain people in the esports industry might not like, but the real reason why those games were smaller then, and they're not massive like these games are now, is those games were very, very hardcore. Like, to even play those games, if you were to start today playing Quake World, like the first Quake game, if you wanted to play anyone halfway proficient, it would take you maybe a month before you'd be close to, like, consistently getting any kinds of wins. And I'll tell you a little story, okay, that I once saw on a forum maybe a year or two ago that really summed up like modern day FPS games to me, where they said like, oh, I got my friend and he saw me playing Quake Live. So I was like, oh, sit down, like have a game. And they said that their friend tried it, and after half an hour, he was like, oh, what did you think of it? And his friend goes like, yeah, it was a cool game actually. But yeah, I didn't really like it. Like I couldn't really compete with the people I was playing with. And I just thought like, the mentality that you, after half an hour, would be able to compete with people who've been playing the game for 10 years is such an alien concept to people who, like, for a hardcore sport, you know. Because if I started playing tennis for half an hour, I wouldn't assume I could, like, beat Andy Murray in a game, you know. So, I mean, that's just a different mentality. It's a different era. That was the whole thing about those games. They were so hardcore. That's what was amazing about it. The skill level was amazing. Whereas I think now, to be a really big esport, it seems like it has to be very accessible. Everyone has to be able to play. Like, your little brother has to be able to play. His girlfriend has to be able to play. She has to follow me on Twitter. That's just the order of things, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but you know, talking about that though, CS is a game that has a pretty big skill gap and a big learning curve. So maybe whilst it's still difficult, it is accessible because you can just pick it up and play out of the box. But then there's the whole different world of the pro scene and the way competitive is run.
No, that's a factor as well. Like, that's why you also need to have, like, the key thing about CSGO, I think, is they added the matchmaking, which was the concept that obviously you had in StarCraft, you had in League of Legends. We never had that in 1.6. Even in, like, 2012, if you wanted to play a competitive 5v5, you had to download IRC, you had to find a channel, you had to get people to play. You couldn't just pick it up and play. So the key thing is, like, this is what actually made poker really big in the early 2000s, was this concept was...
Love a bit of poker myself, by the way. Like this segue.
So the key quality that they always said about it was they knew that anyone can play poker, even someone's rubbish, and they might even be able to win a hand, you know, because there's a bit of luck involved, but you're still never going to be the world champion guy. So you could still play it enough to know the basics, and then you could see that this guy's much better than me. So as long as you have that quality, which I think CS definitely has, then you'll be able to have a big game.
Nice, yeah, good comparison, I think. So moving on from that, you know, where do you see CSGO going? Not a pun on purpose, sorry, it's just how I have to say the sentence, everybody. Yeah, where do you see it going in the future?
It's hard to tell because I wouldn't have predicted it to come this far. Like, I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, I knew it'd go that way. It was always going to be big. When I actually saw the game first come out, it was really small. Like, if you even got like 15K viewers, that was huge. And so I never thought it would get beyond that. I thought it's probably like died on its ass to some degree. And so I saw it start to get big when they came out with the skins. And when that concept came out, I was like, there's nobody's going to pay money to buy skins for a gun. Because the key thing is, it doesn't even do anything. It's not like an item you can use in game. It just looks like a cool gun. So I thought no one will buy that. What idiot would buy that? It turned out there was a lot of idiots who would buy them. So.
I'm one of the... Well, actually, no, I've won a lot of skins for betting, not spent so much money on it.
Oh, gambling as well.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough. That's another thing I also didn't predict. I didn't know there'd be gambling and that. But now you look back, in retrospect, obviously that's a genius concept because now there's people who watch the majors who aren't watching it because they're super fans of CS. They play a bit of CS, but they want to bet the skins. And so you have to watch it to know who you think's going to win. And so that added in a way to get a viewer into the game that I would never think of. Because I'd think, well, they must have to like the game, maybe show them what the game's about. No, this is like a concept that actually no other game figured out. How to have this skin betting and then make that tied into watching because you get the drops, etc. So that was going to be, I think in esports, that will be thought of as like one of those like brilliant moves of like
paradigm shift, is that right?
Big online moves where you could never know that it would change things, but when you look back now, it seems so obvious. I bet every other game wishes they'd done it.
All right, so something else that I would like to touch on, something you got a bit of negative press for recently was kind of like your
Narrow it down there.
your rankings of the top teams. Like for instance, Titan, you were very positive about. I think they're a great team still, but their results recently have been great. So who right now would you say are the top, say, 3? So we don't take forever.
Okay. No, that's pretty easy, I think. Fnatic for me is the clear
and why? And
why? Yeah. Okay, so Fnatic's the clear number 1 for me. Not only did they already have like the number of titles won, they've won all these titles in the last few months, but they've won the last 2 events and 1 was a major. So, I mean, you can't really argue with that. That's the obvious number 1 there. Number 2, I still got Envy at the moment. It probably will depend on the outcome of this tournament. That might switch number 2 and number 3 because to me, okay, Envy didn't win in Cologne, Katowice rather. They just finished top 4, but they've never finished below top 4. Consistency is really amazing there. They've won 2 events previously. They won MLG and they won the last major. So they're just hanging on to the like legitimacy of that last major, I think. But they have to prove it in an event like this. And the reason why they've got a chance to maybe lose here is because NIP's number 3 for me. Like, yeah, they've had all the nice runs. They've run to another major there, second at MLG. But what they need to win a victory. It's good to have top 4s, good to have second places, but you can't be the best if you never win.
All right, and so then just going to cheat a bit there. Who's battling for that 3rd place? Like, who's technically in 4th? Maybe VP?
Yeah, I have VP at the moment, but again, they've got their own problems, which is, yeah, they've got top 4s, but when was the last time VP went to a final? The last time I remember was literally as far back as, I think it was actually Gfinity. I think it was the last one they even made a final of. So it's been a long time since they've made a big final. So they're there on consistency. They can be top 4 because they always finish top 4. That's fine. The average is there, but is VP ever going to win a big event again? I don't know actually, because in the era of Envy, in the era of Fnatic, I feel like those teams are just like, they've got a little bit extra in all the areas that matter.
All right, so we'll see. We will see. One final topic to touch upon, Thorin, before we close this interview out. You did an interesting video recently on your YouTube channel.
You've got to narrow it down. You know.
Yeah. So, and
what is that YouTube channel again?
THOORIN.
Yeah. Okay.
I know my stuff. So yeah, and that was a video about the open circuit format of the CS kind of majors and other LANs compared to League of Legends. I think you were more leaning towards the CS format, as and which is something that I agree with. Something that Happy and I'm not sure other players have said that they like this format more. But it would be good to get more developer support, maybe a bit more money in, such as maybe an international stuff. But yeah, maybe you want to talk a bit about that because I think it's a great point. Why I think Counter-Strike's so good for one of the reasons why.
I think inadvertently Counter-Strike's actually got the best overall format, because my favorite format from sports is in tennis, because it caters to all levels. The hardcore guy can watch every tournament. Like there's ATP 1000 tournaments, there's 9 of them in a tournament in a year. But if you want to go to the top level, you only want to watch the biggest events. There's 4 Grand Slams. They're like the 4 majors like we have in CSGO. We have 3 majors per year. They have 4, okay? So the idea is if you're the top, most casual level guy, you just watch the 4 majors. They're spaced out throughout the year. If you want to get hardcore, then there's the events below that. They have the same players in, but it's not a major, okay? But there's your extra entertainment. And then below that, there's even more tournaments if you really want to go far. Whereas in games like League of Legends, it's the equivalent of having like, say, 1 major and then 1 sort of below that, and it just lasts the whole year. Like, it doesn't really cater to all the areas, actually. It doesn't even cater to the one that they want. Like, the most casual guy, well, it lasts all year. Does he really want to watch it? The most hardcore guy, well, he's only really got 2 or 3 tournaments to watch in a year. So I think, actually, inadvertently, CSGO's got the best method, because it's closest to that. It didn't come to that thinking that, like, let's be like tennis. But we've got this world where I know people who follow League of Legends, who follow my work, and they say, like, oh, I wasn't really into CSGO, but I watched the majors. Like, that's cool. There's only 3 of them, you know. But anyone who wants to go more hardcore, we've got the 3 World Championships for you, and then you've got the tournaments below. And that's another key point that CS has got over even Dota. If you win the international, you're the world champion in Dota. That's what everyone will say. No matter
and
what
you're
happens.
stinking rich as well.
Yeah, well, that helps. You'll be called the world champion, though, even if you bombed every other tournament. Whereas we don't call it the World Championship at the majors, but really those are 3 World Championships we have. So if you win a major, okay, you're the champion of that major, but if at the next major you bomb out, someone else is the champion. So it's also even better for keeping, like, even a casual fan aware of, like, who is the best team right now. So we know it's Fnatic at the moment. They had the lead up, they've won it now. Envy only came top 4, but it was only 4 months ago that they won a major. So if that was our World Championship, then until next November, people would be saying, oh, Envy must be the best team. So it actually just works on every level, I think. It's kind of like a more expressive way of understanding who are the best teams right now.
Fantastic, great analysis, and yeah, overall great character. Any final words? Maybe you want to put your YouTube channel or whatever, your Twitter out there, and people can give it a look-see. Anything you want to say?
I mean, listen, if you're not enjoying this interview so far, you think I'm a bit obnoxious or whatever, like, you're wrong, but just don't follow my stuff. It's not for you, okay? It's just for, like, cool people who are in the know and that. So if you're cool, though, you're probably cool, right? You probably want to be cool. Probably follow me on Twitter and YouTube and stuff. It's Thooorin with 3 O's, because actually I took the word good, it has 2 O's in it. I took the word God, that has another O, and I thought, just combine them. I'm good and God, so 3 O's. Just remember that.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much for your time, everybody. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.